Victor Rivers, the millionaire, had no room for responsibility in his life. He impregnated his maid and immediately rejected the child she carried, but the truth would soon unfold when he saw the baby's face. Before we begin, drop your city and time in the comments below. Also, don't forget to strike that like and subscribe button. Let's dive in. The sterile hospital room was a stark contrast to the storm raging in Rebecca's heart. Exhausted from hours of painful labor, she cradled the child she'd given everything for. Victor stood next to her, a cold figure whose promises now seemed like hollow echoes. He barely spared a glance at the baby before uttering, "This child isn't mine," and turning away. To him, it was as if the child didn't exist. To Rebecca, it was her entire world. But Victor's arrogance was about to cost him. He lived as though the world owed him everything, a belief that came with wealth. People were just objects, women to be used, workers to be discarded. Rebecca, to him, was no different. She was the maid, a silent presence who never challenged him, always in the background, performing the tasks no one else would see. She wasn't a person to him, just labor. But then loneliness, combined with arrogance, led to a night neither of them would forget. What happened next will shatter everything Victor thought he knew about himself. Victor dragged Rebecca into his world, not with love but with a sense of ownership. To him, she was nothing more than a fleeting distraction, a body to satisfy his desires. When dawn broke, he slipped back into his routine, leaving her to resume her duties as if the night meant nothing. For men like him, there were never repercussions. Until one day she told him she was pregnant. He stared at her, his gaze unfeeling and without a hint of emotion, slid an envelope of cash across the table. "Take care of it," he ordered, his voice laced with more disdain than guilt. When she refused, he sneered, "Don't think for a second that you can trap me with this child. I don't want you. I don't want it." The months that followed tested Rebecca's resolve. Alone, she carried the child, enduring the whispers, the shame, and the toll on her body. When the time came, she lay in the hospital, trembling with fear but determined to bring her baby into the world. Victor only appeared out of pride to confirm his belief. But when he saw her holding the child, he recoiled, coldly declaring, "This isn't mine." He never even looked at the baby. Rebecca's heart shattered, but she didn't beg for his approval. Instead, she held her child close, her eyes burning with unshed tears as Victor turned his back and walked away. To him, she was just another discarded woman, another secret buried beneath money and silence. But the silence that followed in his mansion became unbearable. Nights grew long. His whiskey no longer numbed the memories of her tears. He lay awake, haunted by flashes of the hospital room, the baby's tiny cries, and the way Rebecca clutched her child as if protecting it from the world, and from him. What happened next will make Victor question everything he thought he knew about power. Pride had him firmly in its grip. Victor convinced himself that he was in the right, that women like Rebecca only saw him as a means to an end, that the child couldn't possibly be his. His wealthy friends had assured him of that over cigars and fine wine, telling him, "You did the right thing, Rivers. She was just after your money." But then reality shattered his carefully constructed lies. Weeks later, something gnawed at him, a curiosity he couldn't ignore. He returned to the hospital, telling himself it was just business. From the doorway he saw Rebecca cradling the baby. She adjusted the blanket, and the infant stirred, blinking its eyes open. Victor froze in place. Those eyes, gray, cold, and unmistakably his. His father's eyes. His grandfather's eyes. Victor's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The baby wasn't just anyone's child, it was his. He staggered into the hallway, gasping for air. He had condemned his own flesh and blood. He had turned his back on the one legacy that mattered more than all the wealth he'd ever acquired. When he confronted Rebecca, her silence was deafening. Then, with quiet bitterness, she spoke, her words cutting through him like a blade. "You treated me like nothing. You left me to do this alone." Now you don't deserve him." Those words stung deeper than any business failure, harder than any loss. For the first time, Victor felt the crushing weight of his choices. The riches that once defined him seemed meaningless in the face of the truth. But then, on a stormy night, he couldn't run from it anymore. Would he step up, or would his pride destroy everything? Victor drove to the humble apartment where Rebecca now lived. The contrast between his cold mansion and this place was stark. His marble halls, once echoing with power, were empty, while here the narrow stairwell carried the scent of dust and resilience. He knocked at the door, and when she answered, her expression was hard, protective, guarding something far more precious than anything he'd ever owned. Inside, the baby slept soundly in a crib by the window. Victor stepped closer, his heart pounding with each movement. As he neared, the child stirred, his eyes fluttered open, and Victor froze. Those gray eyes, the same as his, stared up at him. Victor's legs shook. For the first time in his life, the man who believed he controlled everything felt utterly helpless. He sank to his knees beside the crib, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "I was wrong. He's mine. I see it now." Rebecca watched him in silence, her arms folded tightly across her chest. There were no tears left for him, no forgiveness in her heart. "You can't take back what you said," she said coldly. "You can't undo the months I spent alone. The nights I begged for help but you turned your back. You can't erase how you treated me as if I were nothing." The weight of her words crushed him. Victor pressed his forehead to the crib, his sobs quiet and deep. The man who had once ruled rooms with power and fear was now reduced to begging for a chance, one he had never truly earned. Not with wealth, not with control, but with the kind of love he had never known how to give. From that moment on, Victor was no longer the man he once was. The part of him that believed money could absolve cruelty had broken. And every day he returned, not as the man who commanded, but as a broken soul trying to rebuild. Would Rebecca ever let him in again? At first she refused to let him in. She stood, arms crossed, watching as he fumbled awkwardly with bottles, struggled to change diapers, and tried to rock the baby to sleep with stiff, uncertain hands. But something shifted inside her as she watched him. What struck her the most was that he kept showing up. Not with gifts or promises, but himself. Night after night, he returned, a little more patient, a little less sure of his own arrogance. He slowly learned the rhythm of fatherhood. He cradled his son against his chest, his body softening with each breath the baby took. He whispered lullabies, his voice breaking with the weight of guilt, singing songs he hadn't thought of in years. And when the baby's tiny hand gripped his finger, Victor's eyes welled up. In that delicate touch, he felt something that money could never buy, an unspoken forgiveness, not from words, but from the innocent heart of a child who had never known rejection. Rebecca stayed guarded, though. She couldn't forget the coldness in his voice when he rejected her in the hospital. "This isn't mine." Those words still echoed in her mind, cutting deep when she was most vulnerable. The scars left by those words didn't fade with a few tender gestures. But as time went on, she saw something she hadn't expected. Consistency where there had once been cruelty. Victor wasn't coming to make up for lost time or save his reputation. He was simply trying to be a father. And with each passing day, his wealth, his empire, seemed less important. The boardrooms, the contracts, the polished image he'd carefully built, it all felt meaningless compared to what he was learning to hold in his arms. Would she ever fully trust him again? Could his actions outweigh his past mistakes? He had spent his life chasing prestige, believing it was the pinnacle of success. But the moment he turned his back on his own flesh and blood, that prestige vanished. Now, the sound of a child's laughter in a modest apartment held more value than the sound of his name reverberating through grand boardrooms. Years down the line, the boy would never know the sting of rejection, nor would he recall the coldness of the hospital room, nor his father's cruel denial. What he would remember was a father who returned, who kept trying, whose arms held both guilt and love in equal measure. Victor, forever haunted by the arrogance that once ruled him, came to understand a truth that eclipsed the billions he'd earned. True poverty isn't living without money, it's living without love, without humility, without family. For the first time, Victor chose a wealth of the heart over his worldly riches. And once he made that choice, there was no going back. If this story resonated with you, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. We'd also love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below. Stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching. Until next time.